Okay, guys, welcome back to Let's Get Freaky podcast. Super excited tonight. We are joined by Christina from Sasquatch and Sourdough Podcast. How are we?
Sourdough. Sourdough.
Have I said it wrong? Oh man,
Sourdough. Like the bread.
how have I done that when I've just said it to you before we started to
It's
make sure I said
okay.
it right? And then I told you I
It's
do that.
okay.
Thank you.
I think I agreed with you
Oh,
because you said Sourdough, and I was like, sure.
okay.
No,
It's
it's
not my fault
sourdough.
then. It's not my fault
No,
then.
no, it's not. And I also have a really thick kind of Baltimore, Maryland accent. So yeah, sourdough. Our O's are yeah.
So what part of
How
the
it,
US are you in right now? Sorry.
I'm in Baltimore, Maryland.
Oh, okay,
hmm
cool. Ravens fan?
Yeah. No, I don't care about football.
That's cool. Don't
we
blame
actually
me.
like we like soccer more in our family. So yeah, in our
Awesome.
little family, yeah,
That's
yeah,
the real football, you mean?
real football. But if I say that around here, I'll get
Yeah,
shut.
you
I'll
get in
get
trouble.
shunned. Yeah, they'll throw me
What's
out.
what's your team? Have you got a team?
I don't. No, but I
Okay,
think. Well, I know enough not to like Chelsea. So.
that's cool
hmm
with me. That's cool.
Yeah. I did actually see my husband and I like way back in college. We saw a Tottenham Hotspurs game, and that was good. Yeah. But
Ah,
that's just fun and,
yeah,
fun
that's
soccer.
cool. I'm a
Yeah.
Leighton Orient fan. You probably don't know who they are because they're
Nope.
lower down in the pecking order. So tell us about you. Tell us about your awesome podcast and what got you into these wild subjects.
So I guess I know everybody always starts with that. Like, what started you in cryptids? And for me, I guess it was probably like the X Files. Because I was 10 in 92. So I guess that's when everything like all that stuff came out. And I just I remember one of the big things I think for me was going to because in the 90s you didn't we don't have all the technology like back in those days like we do now, and we just did a lot of like going to the library. I was a latchkey kid, so my parents were working, and I would go like just down the street to the library, and there was an occult section that I always was kind of like drawn to. So that just I feel like it was always kind of there, like Goosebumps. I just kind of like it was like our culture. Like we kind of grew up with it. So yeah, that's kind of where the intrigue started. Yeah,
Goosebumps
for
is
sure. Oh,
Goosebumps was the
Goosebumps.
best, man.
I
I've still
know.
got my books now. I've still got them all. They're actually just over there. I've got a big
I
pile of
do.
them.
I do too. I have my Goosebumps and what like Fear Street, like all of those,
Yes.
and scary stories to tell in the dark.
Hmm.
Like that was another one. Oh, they're so good.
What was that show when they used to sit around the campfire? I forgot what it's called, but it was like,
Are you
oh,
are you afraid of the
that's it.
dark?
That's it.
hmm
Yes, that one as well. So
Yeah.
good.
So I guess like Nickelodeon really just kind of started all their
Yeah. They messed us
creepy
up.
brain, their brainwashing really young in the 90s. No, I
So
won't get into conspiracies. I
that's
will
cool.
derail.
We can
Yeah.
get into conspiracies as well. That's for
Yeah.
sure. But so
I am
growing
not
up,
an authority.
growing up, did you have paranormal experiences growing up? Anything out of the ordinary?
So I did have one, and it's really funny because the first time I really ever told this story, like outside of, so my co-host Crystal and I have been like best friends for a long time, and we share a lot of like weird sort of stories and stuff. But like outside of friends, I never really told this story. Except I told it on the Bump podcast with Bo Kennedy, and I really wanted to just see if anybody else had experienced this, but kind of the long story short, my family was kind of a broken sort of family, and there was a little bit of like turmoil, lots of anger and stuff in the house. Um, and I had this really weird experience where it was like I would try to go to bed, and I would see these like if I closed my eyes, and I was probably like around 7 or 10, like in that I can't really remember. So part of it's like I don't know if I'm misremembering or if it's just a dream or who knows. But this part was the most vivid. Like I remember I used to be able to like close my eyes and see like little like floating kind of like cascading lights almost, but they were really tiny dots of like different color. It's almost like one of these guys back here,
Hmm.
one of those like weird lamps or whatever. But
Yeah.
it was they were very small, and they would just kind of cascade, and I could kind of control it. It was really weird. So that would happen, and it would happen like I would close my eyes and like try to go to sleep, and it would feel like my whole body would like go numb. And I don't think that it was like sleep paralysis, because I've done like a lot of research on like sleep paralysis and stuff like that, and it wasn't really like that. Um, and then there was one instance where that same like experience was happening, but my furniture, and when I remember it, I'm like, okay, I had to have been at least 10 because I had a TV in my room. And it was like one of those big box, TVs. It wasn't like flat screen or whatever, iPad. So that was like, I don't know, probably like 10, 5, 8 feet away from my actual bed. And I remember that I would go to sleep and I would have that feeling. And then I would like wake up, and then like the furniture would like gradually keep moving closer to me. And I would like close my eyes and then open my eyes, and it just like, and then it was like gone. Like it just had stopped happening. Um, so that was like really one of the first things, I think. And it probably, the more that I tell this story, the more I kind of think it out. And I'm wondering if that's probably something that was like, everything together. Like,
Hmm.
because you know how that stuff works. Like, spiritually, if there's a problem in the home, is there an attack on the family? Is this a symptom of that attack? Or is this something that was just, directed at me to plant that? Because either way, a seed got planted.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's probably like there's a connection between all of the stuff that I was into and then that. Because then I was like, okay, well, how do I figure out what that was? Let me go investigate. So I've always wanted to be like, in research, stuff like that. And I feel like that's what really planted that sort of seed. But I haven't heard anybody have that kind of experience. So if
Hmm.
anybody out there has ever had their furniture weirdly gradually move, and then and it was one instance, it wasn't like, night terrors, things like that, it, it was just the one time.
Did you hear
It's
it
really
move as
weird.
well? Could you hear it moving?
I don't remember that. I just
That's
knew,
fine.
and that's like the big thing, right? Like I'm always just kind of like, I just knew it was happening. It was the presence. It was
Hmm.
definitely like a dark sort of, it was just happening. I could tell that something had shifted
Yeah.
in that room. Now my brother had sort of instances of, I don't know if they were night terrors, but he had like, they just called it growing pains. So he would like cry out when he would sleep sometimes. But other than that, like there wasn't anything weird in the house or, anything like that. So
Yeah.
that was probably like, I mean, that was really like the beginning of all of that sort of, I guess, intrigue, really.
The lights that you were seeing. So you pointed for the people listening, you pointed at you've got one of those like electric lights in the background that are
Mm-hmm.
really cool. Love them lights.
Yeah.
When you touch it and it all goes to your finger.
Yeah.
They are cool lights. So it looked like that. Do you have any idea what they were?
So when I say it looked like that, I guess it's more of like that is, see, it's just so weird to describe. Like it's so hard to describe it because they were small. They were little tiny. They were kind of like those little, like when you close your eyes and you're getting older and you can see the floaties. So
Hmm. Yeah.
it was kind of like the floaties, but they were like cascading, and that's like all I could see when I closed my eyes. And it was different colored lights, like it was like purples and blues, and then kind of as they were only happening when I felt that feeling of like numbness. That's why I'm kind of like, it could be some sort of sleep paralysis, but it doesn't, it was just like a really weird feeling. I don't know.
Hmm.
And nothing happened. It wasn't like, some sort of, people have like those beginning experiences and then they have like a bigger, like I was taken, or like nothing really happened. It was just like this. So I don't know if it was like a trauma response because we did have a lot of fighting, who knows?
Hmm.
I don't really know the answer to it. I just know that it was a really weird feeling. Um, And it was almost as if, like I said, I could control it. Um, but even that doesn't really make like it wasn't like something I could turn on and off. It was just kind of,
Is
I
it
don't
something?
know.
Could you stop it from happening?
I don't really remember. See, that's the thing. I don't really remember what it, if it was a trick, like what it was. It just
Hmm.
would happen occasionally. And it was never enough. Like I didn't tell anybody about, it wasn't something that like my mother knows about. Like, so who knows if it was just, I'm more so kind of want to go to like it was some sort of trauma. I want to be like, not skeptical about it, but I don't want to say that it was some sort of experience when it really wasn't. But it was just really weird.
Hmm.
I mean, nobody, that's not a usual thing that kids have, you know,
Oh, that's
like,
these things. But I was talking before. I had experiences growing up as a kid. I was
mm-hmm.
always naturally scared of the dark, even before. So I saw a ghost when I was 10, and but
Yeah, that is
I've
crazy.
always been scared. I've always felt like there was something there. I feel like with the paranormal that there's a knowing. Like you just know
Yeah.
that this whatever this is that's happening is not right. It's out of the ordinary. I don't know what it is, but it's not right, if that makes sense. I feel like we know inside that what we're
Yeah.
experiencing is not in our mind or, you know?
No, I think you're right. Like, and I think that's why I think that little bit of a seed was, I keep saying that, like seed was planted to figure out exactly what that, what was that.
Mm.
Um, it was a really, it was just really strange. And that's, I think, because it was something that was unnatural,
Yeah.
you know?
You knew it wasn't normal. You knew it wasn't right, really, what you
Yeah.
interesting.
And it was, I mean, and it's always, I always kind of correlate this with this other. So at that time, we were Catholic and we went to Catholic church, but I didn't have a real connection with the Lord. Um, and I definitely know that, like, at that age, that same sort of age, that's when a big seed of like doubt was definitely planted in me. And that carried on for, most of my life. Um, so that wasn't, and it was funny because I've told this before, but at the same time that that experience like sort of happened, and it wasn't like it was forever, into my teens or anything like that. I think it was just like maybe, a couple instances over time that were at least memorable. But I always remember that there was this one like standout memory that I have. I was in my little sister's room, and it was a very small room, and I was just like looking out the window, and something said to me, and like I know now that it was like the Holy Spirit, but like back then I was like, what is this voice? Like, but something said to me like, you. There's no other person like you. Like you are unique, and there's no one like you. And so that was a time when we were having a lot of like drama in my family and stuff like that. And I think that when I look back on it, I really feel like that was like the Holy Spirit trying to like comfort me. Um, in like a little, I mean, how much can a little girl, really understand?
Hmm.
Um,
How
but
old
I
was you
just
when
did,
that happened? Sorry.
I think I was like seven.
Okay.
7 or 8, so seven's always been like a really formative, and it's funny because when my son was 7, I was just like, oh my gosh, I hope nothing happened. Like it was like a formative thing,
Hmm.
when you're 7. So yeah, I don't know, but I always correlate that around that same time
Hmm.
of I just remember, um, yeah, just hearing that. And it
So,
was one of those things like in my spirit. It was in my spirit. It wasn't something in my head. It wasn't something, I mean, if
mhm,
you guys out there listening, if you're walking with the Lord, you know what that means. Like that feeling of like, oh, it's a knowing. I
yeah.
know that sounds like esoteric, but you
Mhm.
know.
No, I think that I do think that with the paranormal, with good experiences and bad experiences,
Hmm.
I think a lot of the time we know there is a knowing that's just in us. Sometimes we don't really understand what it is, but we know that it's something, you know, I don't know what I'm trying to
Hmm.
say, something good or bad. But yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I like so we were talking about your ghost story. Like,
Yeah.
oh so I think if I can just add my 2 cents, is it
Yeah,
sounds
of
like
course.
you saw the Canterville Ghost. If anybody remembers that movie from the 90s, you have to check it out. I'm telling you.
The Canterville Ghost.
The Canterville Ghost, yeah. And it had Sir Patrick Stewart
I'm
and
Googling it right now.
Nev Campbell in the 90s. And like, so
Can-
our show is a 90s show, by the way, because that's
Okay.
where I'm from, the 1900s.
A great era.
Yes.
So in that film, is there a ghost that looks like Shakespeare? Because
Yeah, so
that's what
he
I
does.
saw.
Exactly. So he's from that era, and like the whole I guess the whole premise is that like poor Nev Campbell has to go to like beautiful England and move into a haunted castle, and she's got like a total teenage problem with it, and she like hates it, and she has to like uproot her life, and they go, and then the castle's haunted by the Canterville ghost, and they have to like help him
That sounds like a
go.
great movie.
It's a great movie. Like,
How have I not seen that?
I don't know. So yeah,
I mean, my
welcome.
experience as a kid, like obviously, it was terrifying. Like
It
I'm
had to
quite,
have been.
I'm happy that happened because I think that's probably why I'm doing this show now. But at the time, and for the years after, and even now, I'm still scared of the dark. I still see things in the dark, and I'm still very scared of the dark. And so it wasn't. Yeah, it's weird. It's a weird experience.
Yeah, but it's just like what you just said. Like, we get to a point where we know there is a knowing. There is something where it's like, okay, wait a second, something's not right here.
Hmm.
Like what I'm experiencing, I'm not just freaking myself out. Something is here. So that actually, if you wanna, I do have another story that I've never like shared. This is my hat trick. This is it. It's the only one
Yes.
that I have a couple and I've shared them on other podcasts. And now every time I'm like going on a podcast, I'm like, because ever
Drop.
since when I went on Drew's podcast, he was like, I'm sending your stuff out to everybody. And then I had like 10 different people. And I was like, guys, I have like 3
That's
stories.
awesome.
Like, that's all I have.
Shout
Like,
out Drew, by
so,
the way. Cryptid Warfare
oh,
Pod, mate.
Drew,
He's
he's
awesome.
so great.
Yeah,
He's so
he's
great.
such a cool dude.
He's so
So,
cool.
do you say you've not shared this story on any other podcast?
No, no. So, okay. And
Elusive.
it's a Gettysburg story. So I so we don't live too far from Gettysburg, we live in Baltimore. So to go
Hmm.
and like hang out, it's like an hour away. So at the time, I was not like I wasn't walking with the Lord. It was actually right after I had this other crazy experience. It all kind of happened at the same sort of time in my life. I shared this on Drew's podcast. Like I was at this kind of like new agey event, kind of, just I guess it was just like a retreat, I would say. And it happened in the mountains, and we're pretty sure that like it was some sort of territorial spirit that like got, I don't know. It was just crazy. So I had this like really crazy experience there, and then when we were coming off the mountain, like driving home, it was gone. So like the weird, crazy feeling, vibe, all that stuff. But then ever since I like after that experience, that's when things started ramping up because I was like, oh well, I must be like I'm an empath or whatever. Like I was always kind of like in new age, the occult, like all that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, so
You,
after that,
you've got to
I was
share that
like,
experience with me. I've got to know what happened. I'm sorry.
it's like, see, that's the problem. Like, I don't want to. It's like I could just write a whole book, but I don't
Yeah,
want to like keep talking about the same stuff. But
that's
so
cool.
with that experience, I was not walking with the Lord. I was in a really super dark place. Um, I had I had my son. I had like really bad like postpartum. I was just really depressed and had like really bad anxiety. I was um I was drinking a lot, and that was kind of part of the culture that I was like in. I was like bartending, going to like metal shows. So like everything was kind of like wrapped up in that sort of identity.
Hmm.
And so that night, I something had triggered me. I ran into a friend who is an incredible prayer warrior believer, and I was just I don't know what it was, but I was like going like full steam into why I didn't, trust God, want a relationship with him, like all this. I was just really like in this dark place. And in this retreat, someone was there doing Reiki, energy healing, shadow work, all of those things. And before we went on this retreat, I kept saying, like, are we going to do anything to like protect ourselves? And we were kind of, I mean, and when I say like into witchcraft, it was like I really wanted to like do like witchy things. And it was kind of just like, oh, whatever, tarot cards, all that sort of stuff. I was really looking for like more of a spiritual community. But we were just kind of doing, it was like playing around with stuff, but there's still ramifications, especially when I was in a really, really dark, like it was like the worst place in my life. And so there was all this stuff. So I kind of like, I said like, okay, well, I'll get like Reiki or whatever. I didn't even like believe that. I was just like really despondent and just like done with it, kind of all of it. So I kind of thought like everything was BS. And then I think my friend being there probably just triggered, that past mustard seed of like, oh, well, and at that point too, like when I tell the story, it's like I was constantly hearing in my head, like, you're not enough, your husband doesn't love you, but just it was a constant like attack. And so I think that's probably why I was really just kind of like going after her and like her God. And she listened the whole time. She was amazing. And she talked, we talked about stuff. And so at one point, after like everyone's doing all their stuff, I kept saying, like, before we went on this trip, like, we have to do something to protect ourselves. But in my mind, I'm thinking like, oh, we'll just like sage everything or cast a circle or, something to spiritually protect ourselves. So I had that instinct, but I didn't, I wasn't operating with the Holy Spirit at the time. And so at one point when we kind of came out of the house, I sat down by the fire, and this is like a big wooded area. And I sat by the fire, and I was just I had another friend there, and we both kind of just looked at each other, and I was like, do you feel that? Like something is coming out of these woods. Like we could feel something. So again, it's like that presence, right? Like something's not right. What is going on? Now, if I could look back and probably just surmise, probably the fact that everyone's doing energy work, just flipendoing everything off of everybody. And, there's no authority in the spiritual at all. You're just kind of like, whatever, you're just messing with stuff at that point. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was that was just such a crazy experience. And it got worse. Like we were both kind of freaking out. We didn't know what to do. And then it's like, you can't talk to anybody about it because then when we brought it up, they thought we were nuts. And I'm like, dude, guys, we're sitting here doing all this weird, like new age crap. And I'm the weirdo because I felt the principality or whatever, like what? Like, so, it was just crazy. So, but the cool thing is like, the more that I kind of tell the story and the more that I like kind of, because I never intended to tell the story. And now I'm like, because I just don't want to like call attention to whatever it was. I have no interest in knowing what it was. Mm-hmm. I know that it was probably some sort of territorial spirit. Just loving the fact that I was hating on the creator of the universe, just loving that energy. Yeah. So when we went down the mountain, when we were leaving, it was, and so of course then because that's like what I did. I just like, I was like, I'm going to drink my face off now. Like I got to deal with this. Like, how do I deal with this? And so the next day I can't remember like whatever that timeline is, but like when we went home, coming down that mountain, we both were like, okay, it's like gone. Like I feel, it was like a difference. You could feel the difference.
The energy shift.
You could feel the difference. And so I didn't at all put that together until Drew was like, oh, and I've studied territorial spirits. Like I know that is exactly what probably it was, but I
Mhm.
never put it together that that was what it was.
For
Um,
for anyone listening that doesn't know what territorial spirits are, can you give a
mm,
brief description of what that is?
um, so well, I don't have a Bible verse, but it's basically it's a spirit that is allowed um, to have authority over an area or um, yeah, like I mean, they're like cities. I don't really know the spiritual high. I know there's like principalities and territories, but that's basically what it is. I'm not at all a biblical authority, so don't quote me. But that's basically what it is
Mhm.
that there is a bigger spirit allowed to have that territory, and it's not a good spirit. It's not something um, nice.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's not something that's like a heavenly. It's not angels. So
Mhm. Yeah.
um, now a smarter person than I that is like more biblically informed would probably get into that sort of territory of like angels versus all that sort of stuff. But I'm just not. I never claimed to be any sort of like Bible scholar. Actually, it's really funny because at some point I did want to go to Bible college, and God was like, "I'm gonna shut that door." Like, nope,
Not yet. Not yet.
no. Mm-mm. So yeah, when we came, so there was a total just a shift like in the atmosphere of that, and it was. I think that's what really kind of started things. Um,
So
my
you
whole
and your friend, sorry, you and your friend both felt that shift as well.
yes, hmm
Interesting.
yeah, yeah, it was really crazy. Um, and the interesting thing too is like so now when I think about it, so my other friend that was there, that was the Christian that I was like yelling at, basically. She told me later um, that she had like every one of her friends praying over this evening because she knew that she was going to go into spiritual battle because of what was going to happen there and what we were messing with. As innocent as it seems like it would be, a bunch of gals getting together, having some wine, and you know, working on their shadows. Like it's not because you're just pulling energy off of people and not doing anything with it. It's just like,
Mhm.
you know, and
How
then
many?
and oh, go ahead.
No, sorry. I was going to say, how many of you was there at the time?
Oh, it was like a whole house. It was like 15 people. Yeah.
Okay.
It was like it was like a big party. Um, and so, and that's what we were into. Like we were all into that. My friend was the outsider because she was like the one, that was the Christian and that wasn't. But it's really funny because she was the one that was actually like keeping us all prayed up. I mean, she was like prayed up for it.
Hmm.
Um, and so but the funny thing is, like, the more that I kind of tell this part of my story, the more I realize that God totally just allowed me to go through that. Like, I think I had to really get that out of my heart and my system with Him. Because I was just so mad. And it was just like, I don't even know why, but I remember being really, really just angry. Um, and I had been angry with Him for a long time. And I think that was just like whatever that thing was in those mountains. I didn't conjure it, but I definitely got its attention, like for sure.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, what's going on over here? Like, I mean, that's just like, let's summon demons. Like, there was just awful, the stuff that I was talking about. Um,
Do you think that was
and God,
possibly trying to attach to you, or?
So I'm pretty sure that it did. So that's the interesting thing because so that's why I guess I have to tell these two stories at the same time because once we got out of that sort of scenario, this was the same time that my husband and I went to Gettysburg. And so then I had to figure out how to process that like as soberly as possible. Like, okay, well, I definitely experienced something. What was it? And you guys have to listening realize that this is before these podcasts. Like I'm talking this is 15 years ago, maybe. Yeah, like this was years there wasn't blurry creatures, there wasn't, Like no one was on the horn talking about Sasquatch and ghosts, and maybe we had Zach Baggins and ghost hunters, but we always made fun of him anyway. So like,
Yeah.
like I'm gonna punch his ghost. I'm like, all right, bro, whatever. Like, come on. Sorry, Zach. Sorry if you're listening.
It's still going. They're like series
He's got a
40,
museum and everything, and
45.
it's crazy. I don't know. I'm not again.
Oh, my Siri just started talking then on my phone. That's never happened before. That's weird.
She loves Baltimore accents.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
That's never happened before. Someone, a Zach Baggins supporter there, I think is.
Oh, yeah, that's what happened. She's like, it's actually series 45.
Yeah.
She just fact checked us in real
Yeah.
time. That's great. Wait, is that Alexa or Siri?
That was Siri on my phone.
Okay.
Never, it's never done
okay.
that before, ever. On my phone. It's done it on my computer before.
That's crazy.
That's quite weird. So,
well,
probably means we're upsetting somebody with what we're getting into.
Tommy, I don't think it's weird. I think that we have robots listening to us in our houses constantly. Come on.
100%. 100%. 100%. We can get into that as well, for sure.
She's telling Zach Baggins right now. They are talking smack on the Let's Get Freaky podcast.
Let's end this now.
No, let's hashtag Zach Baggins and Ghost Adventures, and then look and watch your views go up. Yeah, we know how.
Yeah,
we know how to algorithm here.
100%. That's good.
So funny. Yeah. So anyway, like what happened was, I think that so that was either like another seed that got planted, right? So, and the Bible's full of this like amazing imagery. What's the condition of your heart? What's the soil of your heart? Like, we have all these seeds that are thrown at us constantly, these spiritual seeds, and then they're going to take ground in something. And so that seed, it didn't bounce off. It was just like, oh, look at this, a nice, not soft heart, but a heart that hates God and is searching and is confused and whatever the condition my heart was in at that point. So I was really probably thinking, okay, well, I'm a medium, or I have these, something. I was always kind of looking for that anyway, and, did the whole yoga thing, all that sort of new age stuff. What happens in that trap, I think, is that you get kind of stuck in, like, the best way you can save the world is to heal yourself. So it just kind of becomes this whole like journey of healing yourself and not really worrying about anybody else, if that makes sense. It's kind of a weird trap. At least the path that I took. I don't want to speak, to what anybody else is experiencing, but that's exactly what happened for me. And so I would never do this now, like in a million years. I like totally know better. And I'm surprised that I didn't know better, but we were going to go to Gettysburg. It was our anniversary, and I was like, oh, yes, like it's October. We're going to go, and we're going to go on a like stupid ghost tour, and we're going to have like fancy drinks, and we're going to have so much fun. And what I'm going to do in order to prepare for this is I'm going to invite any spirits out there that need help. Do you need help? Are you like an old Confederate ghost? I will help you because I'm an empath, and somehow I can do this because I had this crazy experience in the mountain. It's like I did not know what I was doing again. And that was kind of my like intention, because you don't pray, you have intentions. So that was what my intention was, hey, and of course my husband didn't know this because he was so tired of me and my like astrology, and he was probably just so tired of me not being a Christian. Like he's been like the whole time we've been together, he's just like, I've been trying to tell you about Jesus for like 25 years and you haven't listened. So I had to learn the hard way. So God only knows what I was like talking to him about the whole time we were going up there. So that was my intention. And we get there, and the first night, I think So it's funny because like usually the first night, if we have like some sort of, whatever, we're gonna hang out or whatever, I think we got there later. And I think that we went on a ghost tour, and I think that like went, yeah, that's what it was. So we stayed in like a really one of the haunted, um, I think it I think it was the Dobbin house that we stayed in. So it's like the Dobbin house and the Farnsworth house, and they're both really haunted and have experiences. So I really kind of want to preface this and say, like, I don't discredit like any paranormal, like you're experiencing something for sure. But my whole take on it now is that it's a symptom of something. So it's either the place that you're at, or it's you. Um, and so when we got there, like, yeah, that now that I'm like thinking about it, we did a ghost tour, and they told us all about like where we were staying, and that there was like a little boy's room, and that the like little ghost boy would like stack up quarters and stuff like under your bed. There was another like scenario about like a cat, like there was a ghost cat, and it was the place that we were staying at. So we like went to dinner, like had a couple drinks, and then we were gonna go to bed because we wanted to have we had like a big day planned. We were gonna do like a bike ride, so we had to get up early. So we go to bed, and we're in it's this tiny room, and it's this like super tiny, like little bed, like a twin size, like from, that era bed. And it was just like, there was all this noise happening and stuff like that. So I like had a hard time falling asleep. And so finally I'm like laying there, and I fell asleep, but then I wake up because something is sitting on the bed. And I'm like, so I wake up and I like look, and there's nothing there. And then I'm like, okay, like what the flip? Like what is that? What's happening with this? And then it starts to feel like a cat. It feels like a ghost cat is on the bed. And then I'm like really aware of my source. So now I'm awake, and I'm aware of my surroundings, and I just freeze. Like I'm terrified. And I look over, and there's not, I mean, it's not like I'm like, my husband and I sleep in a king size bed. Like I don't know what everybody else does, but we're just like, the further away we can be from each other when we're sleeping, it's perfect.
Yeah.
So I'm like very aware that I'm like, oh my gosh, like why is he not waking up? Like how are you not freaked out by like what's happening right now? And then it's like you hear like the radiator is going off. Like there's all this hissing because it's an old building, and I'm thinking, all right, well, this is a really old building. So like calm down. But it was the terror, the absolute like frozen stiff terror that I was feeling, that I was like, this is not normal. I'm not freaking myself out. This is not in my head. Like, and so this is how I knew it was something like totally paranormal. Was so where I was laying, there was this like, you could go into like the bathroom, and I got that presence feeling from that bathroom. And I can feel it right. Like I can feel the feeling right now when I tell it. And I've never told this story before, but like it was just this, it was like there's something here. So then to me, that is justification, right? Like that means like, oh, well, okay. But then I don't know what to do with it. So now I've called this thing in and said, hey, you know, come have an encounter with me. And now I don't know what to do with it. And now I'm totally terrified and freaked out. And if anything, I don't want to get into trying to, figure out what its intentions were. But if I'm a person that totally doesn't believe in God to begin with, doesn't this just justify that to be, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, well, there's a terrifying ghost. Like, and the crazy thing was like my husband slept through the whole thing. And then when he woke up, I did not sleep because it was just this constant, like, what is that? What is this? Like noises. But that feeling of something. And then it started to feel like a cat was on my chest. And I was like, this is terrifying. Like something is on me. And I'm trying to like I'm moving. Like, how do you not feel what's going on? Because we're like right next to each other. He slept the whole way. the whole night, like a baby. Now, I have heard this before with a lot of other people that have had like similar experiences, especially when it comes to like UFOs. Now, obviously, this wasn't a UFO,
Hmm.
but there have been like cases that I've heard where people are like, "Oh yeah, my." Usually, it's like sleep paralysis or things like that. Kind of those like nighttime visitations and stuff like that. But this was definitely something that I had invited, like an idiot, just like, "Oh, I'll
Interesting.
help you."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
So
weird
the
because
next,
the sorry, the place
no,
that
no,
you said there was a cat connection to this place, and then you're feeling it, and
yeah.
that's interesting.
So did I psych myself out to the point where I like imagined a terrifying cat clawing, not clawing, but
Hmm.
did I like freak myself out enough to experience that? I don't know. I've never done that again.
Hmm.
I've never
Exactly.
done that, never done that before, never did it again. Like,
You
you
would think
know,
if that was you creating that,
right,
you would have that more often. You'd have a lot more experiences. I would have thought.
right. So like that's the really crazy thing because then when my husband the next morning I was like, oh my gosh, like I have to tell you everything that happened. Like, let's go get Bloody Marys. Like, I was like, oh, because then again, it fed the whole like drinking. It was like, okay, well now I got
Hmm.
to deal with this again. Here we go. And so he was like, what are you talking about? He's like, I slept like I was like, oh my gosh, no. Like there was a cat. Like it felt like he's like, you freaked yourself out. You like it's everything that they told you you would experience, you know. And it's like,
Hmm.
okay, well then am I that hypersensitive and special or whatever that you know what I mean? Like it was just so strange.
Yeah.
And I did, okay, so this is full disclosure. We did find a stack of coins under the bed,
No
but
way.
no, but don't get too excited because when I was recounting this to my husband, like I'm talking like maybe 3 months ago, he was like, oh, Christina, I did that. And I was like,
Oh
you sure?
man. I
He's
mean,
like,
ah,
yeah. And he did it after I told him of my terrifying experience.
he sounds like a
I was
legend,
like,
but I
he is. He really is.
mean, it's funny, but
It's so funny. It's
ah,
terrifying.
yeah.
So I had this terrifying, like, experience. He's sleeping through it, and then he's like, oh, stack up some coins. And it
It,
was
it,
probably after like we went to an Irish pub because we like loved Irish pubs.
mhm.
Yeah.
But it's a
He
little bit
probably
like what
came
we were
home and was
saying.
like, oh, okay.
I'll leave them there just
Exactly.
to add
Yeah.
to the terror. But
Just the terrifier.
it's interesting because what we were saying at the start, like how there's a knowing with this stuff, and I think that the more I do this, the more I think that there's something to that. Whatever that is, I don't know, but we just know when something isn't right. We can feel it. You know it's not yourself. I think you can psych yourself up. I've stayed in haunted locations where I think I have probably scared myself, like
Yeah.
in haunted hotels and stuff like that. Where when I stay in a hotel on my own, I will leave the telly on all night anyway. Wherever I go, whatever hotel, that's just something I do because I'm scared wherever I go.
Just to
Whether
have the
it's
noise.
just to have the
Yeah.
noise, I have it low down, but just so there's something there and the light. Um, I know that sounds
It's
very sad.
comforting.
Yeah.
No, it's comforting. Yeah.
And if,
It's
for
not
example,
sad.
if the wife's away and I'm at home, I will have on my own, I will have a podcast playing while I'm in bed, or the
Hmm.
telly will be on. I don't like being on my own in the dark. And it's just,
Well, I don't blame you because you had a really terrifying experience when you were young, you
yeah.
know.
And
So that
I've seen shadow figures and stuff. I've woke up during the night and there's been the shape of someone standing there. I've had that a number of times. So
yeah.
I've
Yeah,
just,
I've had that as well. When I went through my depression, it was that presence again. But again, it was always connected with drinking. Like the more
interesting.
that I kind of put those puzzle pieces together too. Yeah.
Hmm.
It was like a
Okay.
just this darkness that like um and I've told this before, like I would talk to it and I would try to like get it away and like, protect our family from it, like whatever. It wasn't like really a shadow person. It was just it was this presence. Like
Could you see it?
just So I was trying to explain this when I was on Drew's show. Like, it's not something that was an apparition. It was just something that was, it was just there. I mean, it was in the atmosphere. The word atmosphere, God's really been putting the word atmosphere on my heart lately.
Hmm.
So that I think that's just the way that I can kind of describe it, is that there was a shift in the atmosphere
Yeah.
that was really palpable and something that I could feel. And so now I'm kind of beginning to learn, what that means. Like, that means that there's something happening in the spiritual, and that, if you are walking with Christ, then you have the authority to do something about it. So now it's funny because we want to go to Gettysburg again and take our son, because we would be, I mean, it's a great place for history, and and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. So now I know that if I go, everyone's getting anointed, and I'm pleading the blood all over everything. So there you go. Like,
Would you stay in the same place, in the same room?
I don't know. I mean, I think I probably would, just to like Zach Baggins it. Like, come on.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't do that.
Hit me.
You would have. There was one episode. I don't know what. Actually, it's funny because Crystal, so my co-host and I, we were really always watching that show. And there was one episode. I don't know what he was doing, but it was like some ghost apparently liked to hit women, and he was just like wearing his awesome '90s club gear.
He's
And
got some
just,
cool style, man.
it's just so funny. Come on, man, you want to hit women, you can hit me. And I was like, oh my gosh, let's turn this guy off. Sorry to all the Zach. I'm really just gonna get all the fans here for our podcast. Hating on Zach Baggins. Like,
Yeah. But it's one of those
no.
shows. I'm sure it's the same in the US as well. It's on so much. It's on like different channels. I can
Yeah.
guarantee I can go downstairs now and find Ghost Adventures somewhere. Like it's
Yes,
it's it's everywhere,
it is.
and
It
it's
is. Because people love that stuff. So that's the thing. Like, that's what we had. We had all those like
mhm.
shows, but you didn't have an actual like way that I could just message somebody on the internet and say, hey, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Um, with
We're
all
quite
these
we're quite
experiences.
lucky now because
We
there's
really are.
loads of cool podcasts that talk about this stuff, and that it's great. That's what got me into podcasts is listening to other people's experiences, and you're like,
Hmm.
okay, so this is actually pretty common, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of, it's funny because like I'm trying to think of exactly, there's no like real pinpointed moment with how like this podcast started. I was really kind of, so I ended up actually giving my life to the Lord in 2019. I'd hit like a rock bottom. It was actually like I said, all that same sort of time. I was just really, really like, my husband was going to leave me. I was over drinking. I was depressed. Like, I refused to get any sort of like help. I was just like, I can do it on my own. Um, which you can't. Like, you need a community. And then all the communities that I was looking for, because I wanted a spiritual community. It wasn't any. It was just not there. Um, and so I had this crazy moment in our mudroom. So we have like I said, like in our kitchen was kind of where I would just like drink and like listen to, sad music and whatever while everybody was in bed. And then I would see this thing in the mudroom, like know that there was this presence kind of lurking, you know. And I I just one night, it's like it's so crazy when I tell it because I'm just like, gosh, it sounds so like crazy, but like it was raining and it was like a big storm, and I was just like at the bottom, and I went into that room, and I was like I was actually gonna confront whatever it was, and I was just like, I'm done. I'm so done with you and this whole thing. And I actually like got down on my knees and I said, I don't know what you are, but I need you, and I can't do this on my own anymore. And like whatever you are, angels, God, whatever, like I need you, and I need you to help me. And that was like, so at church you always like we talk about like salvation moments. Like that was my moment. Like that's what he, I think, was waiting for. Um, and I think he just allowed me to go through so much to just kind of, because sometimes God will push you down, you know,
Mhm.
like, but I think I was really getting close to him, just kind of not giving up, like, but just giving me over to just every, just all the just wickedness that was in my heart. I was just so angry. There was just so much anger. Um, so anyway, that was kind of like that was the beginning of like that portion of like my spiritual like journey, was just in that mudroom and kind of just being done with everything and not being able to. I mean, you can't get to a point where you just can't do it on your own anymore,
Yeah.
you know.
You
So
you sound like you went through a very tough time for a long period of time as well.
mhm.
So if it
Yeah, it was rough. Yeah.
so if it was 2019, I mean, it's not that long ago, 2019
Mm-mm.
now. So,
Yeah, no. So then it's funny because then I feel like God just like kind of expedited everything because it was like, all right, so now what do I do? And like every time I tell the story, it's kind of like in like Step Brothers, like when they have to be adults, it's like, what do
I
I
love
carry
that
my,
film.
do I
I
carry
love
my,
that film.
do I carry an umbrella or like, you know, my high school diploma? I was like, what do I do now? Now I'm a Christian. Like, what does that look like? And then I had all these questions like, well, what about the X Files? What about aliens? Like, what about, and I got for a little bit, I think, because, you have to walk out your own salvation and sanctification and stuff. And I have a really good church. I have a really good, like, spiritual community finally. Um, and I was like sort of safe to like ask those questions. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And that's when I found like Blurry Creatures. Um, and they kind of really started when I started listening to them. I was like, okay, well, this is really interesting because now this is looking at things through a biblical lens.
Hmm.
And I remember like early on in my salvation, or sorry, my sanctification, where I had like all of these questions and I was trying to like reconcile, just everything. Because I have a totally different belief system now, you know, than what I used to believe. Um, because God changes your heart and he makes it like his. And so we're kind of like him more than we are of the world. And so it was just really interesting because I had like all these questions and he just answered me very plainly one day and was like, I'm either who I say I am in the Bible or I'm not. So like there you go. Like that, let that be your lens. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so sometimes I mean, I still kind of go back to that because that was like a really cool moment with like God and like journaling. I do a lot of journaling and stuff like that through like my own like Bible study and things.
Hmm.
But that was just like a really cool, that was like one of the first times I really heard from him too, where it was just like, I'm either who I say I am or I'm not. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
That that
that's, you know,
that
it's
moment
just really
you
funny.
you gave yourself and you was like you called out really for the first time,
Yeah.
like
Oh yeah.
properly. Was there a shift immediately?
Um, yeah, I can tell you. So the next week, it wasn't immediately, I don't think. I mean, it definitely was just like, I probably just cried. I called my sister. So my sister is the one that got me into church. Like she's my little sister, and she'd been going to this church for years, and it's a really good non-denominational church. And so she was just like so tired of me trying to, you know, figure things out. She's like, just shut up and come to church. Like this is ridiculous. Like she's very very to the point. Um, but so one of the ways, so what he does is he starts changing our hearts. Remember we were talking about like, the soil, the condition of our hearts. My heart was so hard. And I do remember the first, this is how I knew that he was changing me from my heart, like from the inside out, like to be more like him. So I don't know if you guys have these people are you in the UK?
Yes, yeah.
Right now? Okay. You're like Essex, right? Isn't that where you
So
are? Or
that's where I'm from. I'm from Essex.
okay.
I live in Dorset now, but I am
Okay.
originally from Essex, London area.
There, there's an Essex here in Maryland. There's an Essex, Maryland,
Ah,
and I'm like 15 minutes away from it. And we always say there's always a rainbow in Essex.
wow,
Yeah.
that's cool.
People
There's
from Maryland are laughing right now because they're like, Essex? Seriously, Christina?
there's not a rainbow in our Essex, that's for sure. That's
No,
why. No, I'm
yeah.
joking.
It's probably the same kind of Essex.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Like the train spotting movie, like that
yeah.
kind of. Yeah.
That's why I
So,
left. No, I'm joking.
oh, there you go. Yeah. So, well, anyway, so this actually kind of ties in. So we had, so like I said, I was kind of in the metal scene, and we have this like group of people that we just called train kids. And so they basically train hop and go from like Philly to Baltimore, like to meet all the different like cities and stuff on the trains to like go to shows. And it's kind of like a whole scene here. And when I was in the metal scene, I couldn't stand them. Like I just again was so angry and like just filled with hate. It was like this group of people, it didn't matter like who they were individually. I was just like, oh, these dirty crust punks all over in the shows getting in for free. Like I was just like nasty and miserable about them. So the way that I know that God was starting to really work on my heart was I went to Walmart, and in the parking lot there was this big van, and it was a bunch of train kids, and it was right around the time when there was like a big metal festival coming through. So I like I knew what was happening. And I will never forget, like, the Holy Spirit was just like, and so when I say the Holy Spirit said, it's a prompting. It's not like an audible voice that's saying like go do this. It's just like it's a knowing.
Mhm.
So I was like, it was like go talk to them. And so I just went over, and they had like signs, and they had dogs, and all that stuff. And they were like totally drugged out. And I just went over and I just started to minister to them. And I was just like, hey guys, what do you need? And that's how I ministered to them. I didn't say, repent, the end is near. I said, what do you need? Like, where are you guys from? Just like talking to them. And they were like, oh man, we could really use some dog food for our dog. And, so I just went into Walmart and I got them everything that they
Wow.
said they needed. And then I got that. And then it was just like, it was awesome because it was like God was really doing a work. And I was just like, I'm going to get this and this and this. Like, so it was just like, buy this, buy this. It was just like this rush of like direction. And I was just running into the obedience. And so I went out, and then I was like, so I did that. And then I went home. And when I got home, I was like, oh man, like I just started weeping. And I went around because they had a girl with them, and she was completely strung out. And I'll never forget, her name was Anna. And she was so strung out. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm probably the same size as her. I just got like a whole bunch of toiletries and stuff, and collected all these clothes and things I thought she might need. Um, and then I wrote her, I wrote her a little note and just said, like, Anna, I want you to know that God sees you and he loves you. And, if you ever need anything on the road, just give me, a call, which was probably not the best idea, but I gave her my cell phone number, and like, I just wanted her to know that like she was seen and heard and not alone, and didn't need to like be laying in this crusty van, like, so I don't know. Like, I think sometimes it's important for us to remember that we will like never see the fruit of things for the most part. Like I have no idea what the fruit of that is,
Mhm.
but I was obedient, and that was really the first, I think, like step in like me wanting to be in ministry. Because after that, I will never forget, like I went home, I dropped all that stuff off to them, And I went home and my mom called me and I was hysterically crying. Like I couldn't stop crying. And she's like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, I don't know. I just bought all the stuff, these cross punks, and I don't hate them anymore. Like it was just like God had made my heart 5 times bigger for the crust punks. It was so ridiculous. Like,
No, but it's not though. It's like
I
it's
mean, it's like that, and I've never actually told anybody that either, because like I just remembered that, like not too, not I mean, not that I didn't remember, but it was just like, oh my gosh, that's right, like that. If I
yeah,
really had to tell, like, what, how do you know that, like, how do you know if God's actually working in your heart? Because I think sometimes, like, if we're really working in ministry, because then I got really plugged in at church and stuff like that. So then when you're really plugged in with ministry, sometimes you forget like where that all started. And
hmm
I know especially for people that are like church their whole life. So like I'm coming from like no church, so like I can actually pinpoint these experiences. But for me, that was huge because it was just like I could tell that he was changing me because I looked at people that I never would have paid it. I would have just been like, oh, stupid losers, you know, and just walked on by.
yeah.
But I did it. I did it. Like I couldn't. And that's how I knew that he was working in my heart
That's so
for sure.
interesting. And that was
God.
at that time completely sort of out of character for you to do something like that. Would you
Oh,
say?
absolutely. And that was definitely before 2020 because everything would have been shut down. So that was like immediate, like not immediately, but that was probably
hmm
like a couple because I got water baptized in April of 2019. So it kind of went really quick. Like it was like I literally like gave my heart to the Lord January, started going to church, water baptized April.
Yeah.
Like I was all in, and I had really good pastors and people that gave me that advice. They were like, "Dude, just jump all in,
hmm
just give them everything,
Yeah.
because you." And not even everybody was so kind to me. And they weren't like, "Oh, well, you have to like make up for lost time." It was just like, just give him everything, give him every part of your life, and then see what he'll do with it. So that's kind of like fast forward. Um, I kind of knew that I had like a project. I wanted to do something in terms of like I guess content creating, something like that. I kind of thought that I was going to start like Instagram posting um just, Bible verses in a prairie dress or something, which is completely out of character because you're still kind of like, well, now what do I do? Do I have to
hmm
turn into like the church lady? Um so I had to kind of like figure all that out. And so he kind of gave me these little like Bible verses and ideas, and I just slowly gave it over to him. And then when I was on the first time I was on the Bump podcast is when I really told my story, and I kind of and that was in March. Um, so it was like I kind of knew something was brewing, like God was doing something, but I wasn't really sure what it was.
hmm
And then it was funny because I started getting into making sourdough, which I've never done before. And he gave me oh man, I don't have it written in my kitchen. But it's like I think it's First Thessalonians 4:22. It's basically like um no, what is it? Hold on. Like aspire to live a quiet life, to mind your own business and to work with your hands. And I'm pretty sure it's First Thessalonians 4:22. So that like scripture, I was like, oh, okay, I like that. Like, and so I
Yeah.
started and it was neat. I was kind of like, just having this fun, like little sourdough experiences making sourdough. And I was like, well, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can like turn into one of these, look at these ladies with all their aesthetic beauty. And, somehow I'm going to turn into a homesteader and like give people Bible verses. And so when I kind of like brought that idea back to God, and he was like, yeah, no, I want you to have this podcast with a bunch of weirdos and make weirdly encouraging content for my glory.
I
So
love it. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So this is quite a new adventure for you in the podcasting and stuff like that. You said that was March
Yes.
you first went on the podcast.
Yeah. So we have 11 episodes. We just dropped episode 11, The
hmm
White Werewolf. So what we do, it's me and my best friend. And we're very different. Like we love the same stuff, but we're very different, like personalities and stuff like that. So she and I always kind of talked about like, we've had like, spooky experiences individually. It would be kind of cool to have something together. And then I kind of just, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to give this to the Lord and see what happens. And it's funny because I got all of this experience with podcasting from church because I've been doing that with church. And so all of the technology, like experience, like because I started out like doing their social media. So like all of this stuff started with me saying yes to God, asking, hey, do you want to run the church's social media account? And at the time, I hated social media and I had just gotten off of Facebook. So it was really funny. Like, it was God's timing. But I
Yeah.
was like, well, yeah, I would love to do that. Like, I want to help out as much as I can. It just like went from there. So I just keep giving it to him. And I'm always just like, if this becomes too much of like the me show, that's why I like being in production, because then I'm like backstage and I'm not like, I was really apprehensive about that at first because it's like I just don't want it to be about me. I want it to be about his glory. Um, and if I can help people tell their stories, because that's the other thing too, is like once you start kind of reconciling everything back to, because I had so many questions. Like, well, what about ghosts? Like, what about the stuff that people are seeing?
Hmm.
What does that mean, Jesus? Like, what, you know, they're in the Bible. Like, he had to tell the disciples, I'm not a ghost. Like
Yeah.
they had a frame of reference for that for a reason.
Hmm.
So then you start getting into the realization that like the spiritual realm is very real that we live in, and it's much bigger than we can imagine. Everything is much bigger than we can think or imagine because
Hmm.
it's created by God. So like even our little paradigms of trying to figure out, what's haunting this building, we have no idea.
Yeah.
You know, we just have no idea. There's some, and that gets back to the whole like principalities and all of that stuff. Like there's stuff going on in the spiritual that
Yeah.
we don't know about
Do you think
for
now,
sure.
where we are now, some of the stuff to do with God, and it's right now for us, we can't even comprehend how big it is, how big it's going to be, or what, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm kind of I'm really excited. I don't know. I'm kind of excited about it. Like I think that I mean I have no idea what's going to happen and I kind of love that. I feel like sometimes what happens is and so I'm actually kind of in the process of I love writing and that's what my degree is in basically creative writing. I went to college for poetry. So here you are. This is your podcast. This is what you do. Um, but so I really think that like we just sometimes we like to dampen the mystery. Like we just really take the mystery out of all of it. And
Hmm.
what I love, it's so funny because now even when he did, he's so great. He's restored so much of my life, but he's even like restored my whole like Catholic upbringing because now I can really understand. And I know there's a whole bunch of people that like get all riled up about Catholics, but like there's really just a beauty in a lot of the teachings of the Catholic Church. And especially I think when it comes to the mysteries, like I really feel like sometimes we just want to solve everything. And it's like,
Hmm.
no, it's kind of his mystery. And I love that. Like, I love that it's like we're not meant to know. It's freeing, like
Hmm.
sometimes. And I
Yeah.
think that's another thing that I really kind of I don't know. I hope that I can kind of encourage in this space is like sometimes you don't have to figure out why the building was haunted.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
you don't have to understand. Sometimes you don't have to understand why you saw Shakespeare at 10. Like
Hmm.
sometimes you just don't have to know.
I want to
Now
know.
well, that's the thing. So
Yeah.
then it comes down to like either a paradigm shift or a belief shift. Like, so if you want to know why, if you are bold enough to take that step and say, hey, you know what, God, I don't know why, like, why, why did you allow? Because things are either God ordained or God allowed, right? Like, I mean, that's what I like believe. I think most Christians can probably agree with that. Like, so if he allowed you to see that,
Hmm.
then the answer is going to be coming from the Holy Spirit,
Yeah.
like seeking his insight. And if you don't get an answer, then you don't get an answer.
Yeah.
But
I
he's
do.
not, but you're certainly not meant to live in that fear. I do know that for a fact.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's a tough thing. Then how do you reconcile that?
Yeah. I do feel like though everything that has led me to where I am now, and I feel like this is where I'm meant to be. Like you, I feel like this
Yeah.
is where I'm meant to be. I enjoy it, and it feels right. So I guess I've
Yeah.
had to experience all that scary stuff, like you as well. That's brought you to this point.
Because somebody might have that same experience and then they'll be able to, at least put a piece of a puzzle together.
Hmm.
Whether they're walking, with the Lord or not. Like there's a lot of people out there that are experiencing the same things, and it's crazy. And I'm even talking about like the people that believe, in this is what's really funny. I tend to do this pretty well is like if I'm in like a community for, a minute, I can kind of take a temperature of what's going on. So I
Hmm.
really kind of immerse myself in church culture. And then I immerse myself into this little like piece of the internet culture, of like I don't even know what we call this space, blurry, weird, whatever. But like, so then I started seeing like, oh man, you've got people that are looking into Sasquatch that don't believe that he's a spiritual being or whatever. And then you've got like all the weirdo, like Bigfoot people like fighting amongst themselves. And I'm like, dude, this is crazy.
I've never understood the fighting. I've never
Do
understood
you
that. When it,
understand like the part of the internet you guys are at?
yeah, I know.
Like it's crazy. Just a bunch of
It's
weirdos
it's
fighting
like
over Bigfoot.
we're all crazy. Let's just
Right.
accept that.
Just
Yeah, I've
calm
got a Bigfoot
down.
top on right now.
Nice. Well, my whole brand, I have a Bigfoot calendar here, as you can see. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
What do
But
you
like
think?
that,
I've got to ask you what you think of the Sasquatch. What do you think Bigfoot is?
so it's funny because like a lot of people ask in this space, like they ask those questions like as like starter questions or whatever. And like, I mean, I grew up with like Harry and the Hendersons. So
Hmm. Yeah,
when
great
I
film.
grew up, I love that movie. But now when I watch it, I'm like, oh, this is totally like an environmental trap. I see what you're doing. Like you're trying to get me to care about the forest, like stuff like that. I don't know, but like I definitely I've never seen anything like that. Like I've never seen anything in the woods or anything like that. I think from the accounts that I've heard, I would probably at this point lean into interdimensional.
Hmm.
Um, I think that he's probably the more that I kind of peer into this space, the more I think that the spiritual realm really looks a lot like Narnia. And I feel like C.S. Lewis knew a lot more than we give him credit for because
Yeah.
it's just like, I mean, it really, and that was the other thing too. Like, I had to reconcile that. Like, well, wait a second. What about like myths? Like, what about like all of this stuff? You know, is it really possible through centuries that people just, you know, made these things up? The people that are writing these stories and like, you know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
just if you, I mean, that's a whole different podcast that I would love to come back and talk to you about.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
Yeah, 100%.
definitely want to come on people's podcasts and not talk about my story anymore.
Yeah.
Like I will talk about a topical weird thing. But like that's the thing. Like, I mean, there's no way that we've had all of these different stories and experiences
Hmm.
throughout time that
And
are the same.
different cultures as well around the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm probably at this point leaning more interdimensional for
That's where I am with it at the moment as well. My
for the
opinion
big
does
guy.
change on the big guy very often. Like
Hmm.
I can talk to someone else that is just flesh and blood, and they'll convince me that it's flesh and blood, and then I'll talk to someone else on the woo side, they say, and that will
Yeah.
take me back there. I don't know. I feel like I'm sitting on the fence with it, but I do think that they're, especially you get accounts here in the UK as well, of people seeing these things.
Hmm.
If they're here in the UK, I would say that it's probably more of a supernatural thing that's happening, whatever it is.
Really?
That's just where I am
Oh
right
wow.
now.
Hmm.
But I mean,
Yeah.
my opinion changes a lot
I
on
don't
the
know
Bigfoot.
any I don't know any UK Bigfoot stories
Oh,
either.
they're there. There's a lot out there.
Hmm.
I've talked to people, and you do get a lot of accounts. So,
Okay. That's kind of cool.
mm,
But that's kind of like, I mean, so that kind of brings me to, so the purpose of the podcast really is just to kind of we just want to tell people stories. It's like it's another one of those spaces. But I started getting into doing research for like different podcasters and my own research. And I was getting frustrated. It's funny because my husband and I share an office and he is a web developer. And so I was looking into this one area and there were like monster sightings, but I was like, well, I wonder if there's any UFO sightings. So then I found myself looking for like 10 different things, like all in different places, like the BFRO and like all those different great websites. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like I wish there was one whole website that just had all of this stuff. And my husband was like, oh, I can build that for you. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, here, look what I'm doing right now. And he was actually it was a totally different type of website, but the exact functionality that this website would need, he was actually like working on and knew how to create it. So for the past, I guess probably like 3 months, that's what we've been really working on so the
Awesome.
website. Yeah, I'm really, really excited about it. And it's totally God. And it's so fun because he like Rob, my husband we call him intern Rob on the show. He's intern Rob. He has no idea. I mean, I know he knows, but like I'm so jazzed up about it because I'm just like, it's totally God. Like God is just like, I don't know why,
Hmm.
like he wants me to do this, but like I've given this podcast over to him and this is the direction that he's taking it. So what does that mean for the future? I don't know. Are we just going to need like a huge historical account of all the weird stuff? I don't know, but it would be really cool to just be able to pull up like Baltimore, Maryland, and I can see, oh, look, there's UFOs. Oh, here's this, whatever it is. Like,
Hmm.
and once it launches, so we talked about this like off air, but like we ran into like hosting issues and stuff like that because the way that he is building it, like GoDaddy can't handle it. So it's like kind of we have to figure out like refigure out the hosting.
Hmm.
So I'm hoping that it'll be launched in like a week. Um, and then I'm
Soon.
just gonna, yeah. I mean, it's like it's only backed up because of stupid GoDaddy. Like
Yeah.
we really like it was supposed to like we were like gonna launch like 2 weeks ago. So then I had like all these
Okay.
podcasts lined up, and I was like, coming soon. It's going to be a website.
So have you got accounts built up ready to put straight on, and then obviously you want more to come in.
Yeah, so the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to put in so we have 11 episodes of our podcast. Our first episode that we did was the Loch Raven UFO. So we live pretty close to, it's called Loch Raven Reservoir in Baltimore. And there was an account in the 50s. And this is a really heavily wooded area. These two guys just driving through saw this huge egg like phenomenon and it stopped their car. Like they got out, tried to figure it out. They went to several different, they went to the police and then they went to, I think it was even like the FBI, and nobody believed them. So it's funny because in all of our research that Crystal and I do and in the, in the little cases that we kind of come up, we just want to like talk about things really around here. Um, what we've found is that it's been so helpful for these people to come out boldly and share their story because then you have other little accounts. So that kind of, was the heart of it too. It was like, what if those guys never would have, shared that? And then they did
Hmm.
share it and then no one believed them. But here we are, how many years later? And all of the disclosures happen and, all that sort of stuff. So
Yeah.
it's also kind of just, like I said, like building that historical research tool that I think is really important right now because
Yeah.
I mean, and we are kind of talking to people that have weird experiences, just like on Instagram. Nobody really kind of wanting to come on the show, but like just chatting. I'm really easy to just kind of reach out to and like talk to, and like it's just amazing how people just they experience things and they have no one else has experienced it. So
Hmm.
if we can get a database where people can go to and just click, and I'm making it very easy to search. And it's going to be like really like pretty. Like it's going to be really, really nice. I don't know like if you guys are familiar with like the way that we do our like our video and kind of content. It's all, I mean, it's all
Mhm.
AI. It's nothing that I'm doing. It's just me knowing the algorithm, really.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's like my artistic ability,
Yeah.
manipulating an algorithm. Um,
That's awesome, though.
but we're really excited about it. And I think, I mean, I'm prayerful that people will, you know, want to come on. So we're going to start with our little experiences, and then I don't really know from there. Like, I'm hoping that people will want to, you
Yeah,
know,
for sure.
go and put things in, but
Hmm.
then I don't know what it would look like to, because there are some websites that will pull from. So, like, I actually found one of our episodes on a website that was like a Bigfoot website, but it looks like they just pull from different Bigfoot content and
Really?
they pull it into like a database, but it's not everything. Like, I've never seen a website that's everything.
Yeah.
Like a, a big overview of like all the,
Hmm.
if I wanted to
All the
figure
high
out
strangeness.
exactly
Yeah.
like whatever
It's
it
a
is,
good
and I'm
idea. And
making it,
would this be worldwide or just America or?
we'll see. I mean, it can be worldwide. Like, so if there's, I mean, there's no like limit to it.
Hmm.
It's just going to be how fast I can like input stuff. Cause right now it's just me it's going to be me. Like, you have to kind of go through, and then I have to sort of vet it, you
Hmm.
know. We talked about, there were like a lot of little conversations about stuff like that, and I was like, well, for right now I just want it to be me being able to do that, because otherwise you'll have every weirdo, who knows,
Yeah.
like, you never know how people will just randomly put stuff in, but
Hmm. Yeah. It's interesting and
yeah.
it's a good idea because I do. I say quite a lot. Are these things all connected anyway? Like, is there a
Yeah.
connection with the UFOs, with cryptids, with ghosts? Are they connected? Possibly. Sometimes the experiences are
Hmm.
quite similar. If you think of when people see Bigfoot, when people see a ghost, when people see a UFO, it is quite a similar sort of experience. But you're just
and
seeing a
that
different version
Yeah,
of something.
and I have had people ask me if there's a correlation between like Bigfoot sightings and UFO sightings. So getting those questions was another thing that was kind of like, okay, well, it sounds like people are starting to ask us questions and we don't have a way to answer them.
Hmm.
Like, I don't, and a lot of it also is just like time. Like, I don't have time to sit and look through 10 different websites and try to cross reference. Like, I mean, that was kind of like what I did in college. Like, I wanted to be like a reference library and all that stuff. So, like, I'm really good with researching and looking at things kind of in that broader picture and then kind of honing down. And I was like, there's no way to do this that isn't time consuming. So
Yeah.
it would be great if we had everything like all together.
And you'll start
Um,
seeing, I'm sure you'll start seeing like patterns and things like that.
yeah, yeah. So I'm really, I feel bad. I feel so bad because my husband's like, there's literally like one time 2 weeks ago, he was like, I'm going to quit. Like, this, stop asking me about it. Like, because I think it's just as easy as like me making, a reel or something. You know what I mean? Like, I have no idea what it takes to make and build from scratch a website. Like, this isn't a
Yeah.
template. So
Yeah.
he's like totally doing this like legit. And I'm thinking he's just like, it's something that you just template it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's
Add
like
some
you have
music.
yeah, exactly. And a couple hashtags and
Yeah,
you're just go.
that's all you need.
He's like,
No, it's cool.
I'm
It's handy.
seriously,
It's handy that
I'm
your
gonna
husband can
quit.
do
I know.
that.
I
How
know.
handy's
Oh my
that?
gosh. I know. Well, and it was so cool because it was just like we happened to be doing like, working late in the office. And I was just like, so annoying. Like, how it would be great if I could just see if there were UFOs near this sighting. And he's like,
Yeah,
I can build that.
that's awesome. Has your husband had any paranormal experiences?
No, mm-mm,
Not yet.
not at all. No, he totally, no. He just, I think he's got like a whole bunch of praying. He's got a really good praying mother.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, no, he doesn't need any on his own. He's got enough with his weird wife. Poor guy.
Can I ask you, going back to the bad times? Sorry to go back to the bad
Yeah,
times, but when
no.
you had that moment when you felt the presence around you quite a lot, and you
Hmm.
felt something was there. Do you think that was an attachment?
So I think, it's so hard to like I thought about that before. And I think something definitely did attach after that mountain excursion. Um, I would say, I think I would probably say that I probably did have some sort of, um, at least oppression.
Hmm.
I wouldn't go as far as saying possession, but I don't know because I mean, in my journals at that time, they're worth, and I'm sure, and I'm sure it wasn't just spiritual. I'm sure that heavy drinking and also just anxiety and depression, you know, there's definitely other ramifications of things, but having a constant narrative in your head of everything is not good enough, you're not good, that's not, that's the enemy.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like that's just not anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah, for
So,
sure.
and I think that understanding the freedom that I feel now and that I experience now, and it's not perfect. Like obviously there's definitely times where I'm like, whoa, wait a second, like what's going on? And I have to stay prayed up. I have to stay walking. Like I literally walk with the Holy Spirit as much as I can, going for like prayer walks, things like that.
Hmm.
So I'm not saying that it's like a one and done, you know, dunk in a river and everything's peachy.
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, knowing, so yeah, like knowing how I feel and how I'm living and operating now versus then, definitely like some sort of oppression. I don't know if I would go as far as saying possession, but the
Hmm.
things in my journal, like I was saying, there were things that I was writing that were just like, I mean, I can't remember exactly what it was saying, but it was like, I was writing something like, I'm feeling feelings that are not my own, or I don't know where this is coming from. I feel like something else is with me, stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, there was something there, and it
Yeah.
definitely wasn't of the Lord. So,
And at times you could physically feel it and know that there was
mm-hmm.
something there as well.
Yeah, it was just this off. It was just like I said. I mean, if anybody out there understands like atmosphere, I mean, if you go into a worship service at church, you feel the atmosphere, you feel the presence of the Holy Spirit, you can feel that stuff. Then try to feel the opposite. So when you ask like, would I want to go? I know I probably would never go. Not probably. I would never go into a place that I know to be haunted to experience something unless I was told by the Holy Spirit.
Hmm.
So, unless I'm on assignment and there's a reason that I need to be there because of his presence needing to be there, I'm not. Nope.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna, I don't have any desire to that. So it's like getting back to Gettysburg. I feel like I would go and I feel like I wouldn't experience anything. Or I would at least be like, we're here for the history. Like,
Yeah. Cut out the funny business.
get, like I said, all the anointing oil.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
And tell the husband not to leave the coins anywhere.
Can't believe they did that.
Oh
That poor
man.
man. We've, he has dealt with so much stupidity with my whole spirituals. I mean, that poor man, I would just be like, let's go read your tarot cards. And he's like, okay, whatever.
Well, I'm so glad that you're in this great place now, and that
Oh yeah,
those dark days are
it's
gone,
so great.
and it's great to see. I'm excited to see what's coming because this is the start of your journey in this aspect. So we got some
Yeah,
exciting times ahead, that's for sure.
I know. I'm really. It is. I think it's going to be really. I feel like God is like setting all of these little shows up just
Hmm.
for And I never hear a story that's like super similar. Like
Yeah.
everyone just has their own journey and their own accounts, and I don't know what it is, but I feel like God is really strengthening this community.
Hmm.
Probably for what's coming. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
It's getting very weird out there, and it's
Oh
not just
yeah.
because, it's Halloween. It's like
Hmm.
this is constantly,
It's always spooky season, is what I say.
yeah,
I know we're in the paranormal
yeah.
world, whatever, but it is always spooky season. There's always weird stuff going on. The mainstream media is wild, as we know,
It's crazy.
and it's getting
It's so
crazier.
crazy. It really is. I know. That's why I don't really get into conspiracy. Like, I kind of, I don't know. I get like if I get too deep into conspiracy world, I get like that feeling of like, I don't know if you can feel like witchcraft, but I get that like pit stomach, like,
Hmm.
ugh, the Holy Spirit's like, stop doing this.
Yeah.
So I
You
don't
can
know if
go
it's
down
because,
rabbit holes and then there's another 10 rabbit hole and it's just,
yeah,
yeah, you're opening
I
up.
don't know if it's like protecting me from like whatever the darkness is, because it's like super. I mean, you don't have to go far to find the disgusting, evil darkness in this world, like
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
But I
And
think
it,
that it's probably just to protect me from the distraction of it, because I'm easily distracted with, you know, like
mhm.
all the shiny conspiracies. You know,
I am as well.
you
But we're
know.
seeing it
So,
now. We're seeing it.
oh,
We're
we
seeing
are.
it right
Yeah.
now. And obviously the big talking point at the moment is the P. Diddy stuff that's
Oh
coming
my
out.
god,
And we're just hitting the surface with that, it seems. So yeah, we can do a whole nother episode about that, that's for sure.
it's so
But
crazy.
yeah,
It's just,
it's wild.
oh yeah,
But I want to thank you so much
crazy.
for coming on tonight, being so open and sharing your story. And it's
Yeah,
great. It's very exciting to see what's coming. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on, being so honest and open.
I appreciate it, and I hope that I can come back and talk about some things other than
100%.
myself.
100%. You're welcome back anytime.
Yeah,
Hopefully, this is the first of many conversations.
yeah, definitely.
Can you?
And we'd love to have you on too.
I would love
Yeah,
to. Anytime.
yeah, that would
I'm
be
there.
fun.
I've had
Okay,
some weird
cool.
stuff happen.
Yeah,
Could you tell the
yeah,
listeners where they can find you?
yeah. So Instagram, definitely Sasquatch underscore and underscore sourdough. Just look for Sasquatch and sourdough. There's no other keywords like that together. So on Instagram, and then you can email the show, Sasquatch and sourdough at gmail.com. And I'm the admin on the IG. So that's where we do a lot of our engagement. And then also we're on YouTube. So you can see we are technically like audio only, because we just don't have video set up, but I do like some fun little designs and things on YouTube. So it's not like super boring. You can have it like, I like to listen to a lot of podcasts on
Mhm.
YouTube. So
Yeah.
we're on there. So yeah, you can find us on those things. I'm not on Facebook because
Awesome.
it's annoying.
Awesome.
Still not on Facebook.
And the website that you've got coming up, can you share that?
Yeah, so that will be Sasquatch and sourdough .com. I mean, you can go there now, but it's just not live. But once, just find us on Instagram. I don't know when this is going to come out, but probably
This will
by
be
that
out
time.
soon. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, just follow us on Instagram and I'll have all the details.
Awesome stuff. We'll keep up the great work. Very excited to see what's coming next. And thank you.
Thank you
So it's
so
been a pleasure
much.
having you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me on.
Guys, if you've enjoyed the episode, share it where you can. That is a great way to support us. Check out, give us both 5 stars. That really does help us. It helps us grow. It gets us out there to more people that enjoy the conversations that we have. Thank you so much. We'll be back soon for more freaky conversations. In the meantime, stay safe and keep it freaky. Bye for now. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.